Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, the podcast for heart-centered creative women who are ready to reclaim their spark and live with deeper meaning, authenticity, and soul. So today I have Nadege Laure with me. Nadege is a soul mentor, poet, forest bathing guide, and meditation and yin yoga teacher who supports women navigating big life transitions. She is the author of Poems for Soulful Living and helps soul-led creatives reconnect with their inner truth, access deeper clarity, and express themselves with authenticity and peace. So welcome, Nadege.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start with your story. Tell us about your journey and what's led you to this work.
Oh, it started in my teenage years. I was drawn to Buddhist meditation. From a young age, I was questioning, why are we here? What is this all about? And I had this interest in Buddhist monks for some
Okay.
reason. And so I started reading a lot about the practices of Tibetan monks and sort of started meditating in my bedroom. And I remember the very first time I did that, I experienced such a state of peace that I knew there was something there. And I just kept on digging and learning about it. When I was 18 years old, my mom passed, and that really reinforced the want to find out, the truth. What is life all about? And we're given a certain amount of time. And so we have to make the best of it. We have to find our purpose and live it. I was very focused on that. And when she passed, that led me to go and travel all over the world and spending time in temples and ashrams and finding spiritual teachers. And I really thought that this quest of finding answers to life's big questions was going to be from people who knew more or knew better, or people that I thought were more spiritually evolved. I really thought they would be able to give me the answers about my life or about life in general. And I remember in a hostel one day just coming across a quote by Rainer Maria Rilke, who said, "The only journey is the one inwards." And that truly shifted my perspective from this outward search and thinking someone else has the key to all of this. And it really reconnected me with that meditation practice. Yoga came into my life then. And it really encouraged me to go further within, but also to trust more those insights and the intuition and the wisdom that would come out of, self-reflection or journaling. And I just kept going with that, studying different modalities, and it all shifted around really empowering people to turn within, find their own answers, and trust that wisdom and their own intuition.
Beautiful. And your book of poems, Poems for Soulful Living, is that the
Yes,
title?
that's the title.
Yeah. So, how did that come about? And what does that body of work mean to you?
So I was teaching a lot of yoga classes at the time, mostly yin yoga. I sort of specialized in yin and restorative practices. And that was very much a mirror of guiding people to go within and listening to their own inner sensations and listening to their own body and exploring that inner geography. And depending on the themes of the classes or themes we were exploring, as I was preparing classes, often I would just have those outpours of poetry coming, ideas that I had to write in a journal, and I would read bits and pieces. And people started commenting on it and giving me feedback at the end of the classes. And I just thought one day, I just have to put them all together. I just have to, let's collage all of those pieces of writing and see what happens. Because I thought it would be a nice thing to gift people at the end of a class or, during workshops or things like that. And when I started putting them together, I realized that's a lot of poem. And it's sort of there's a continuity. There's a theme of that internal quest. And at the start, I thought I would write it for meditation and yoga practitioners or teachers, poetry that they could read during shavasana or long held pose of yin yoga. And then some of them were not related to yoga. It was a bigger self-exploration. And I had this image of, a woman by a windowsill sipping on a cup of tea and reading the book, reading a poem and putting it down and having that self-guidance within. And when I released the book, it was really interesting for me to hear that a lot of women were getting it and enjoying it. And that was women who were newly divorced or women who had experienced grief or women whose, the kids were in their 20s, had left the house, and they were in a position to question, who am I now? Kids are gone. Who am I? And so it reached a whole bunch of different women at different stages of their lives, but still in that common spot of questioning their identity about what's next.
And how was that sort of creative process of writing those poems? How has that supported you as well?
I think I often say it's kind of like I didn't do it, because it feels like it just really came through me very easily. Even sometimes I always, have a little journal in my bag. So even when I'm out and about, I write ideas, I write a line, or I write a combination of words that's popping out, that's calling me to explore further. So I would write things down. And yeah, sometimes I would have to, of course, rework it and reorganize it. But also very often it kind of just poured out. And I think the way it helped me, it gave me confidence in my own creative voice.
Okay.
And the way it's been reflected back to me. And that's also another interesting thing, because, you write the poems, you write the book, but then when it's published and when it's released out in the world, the book has a life of its own. It kind of has its own energy. So it feels like a separate entity. And it's been really interesting to hear how it has reached people. So, having that feedback of your own impact.
Yeah.
And how those words that seem to have come to me very easily have had, a big impact on people, or has, caused insights and revelations and ideas, or like that spark of inspiration to go and do something, or to give them the courage to act, dream, or an idea. So it's been, I guess, a mutual help.
Yeah. And so on that then, what kind of transformation do you hope that this book of poetry offers other people? What's the transformation that you kind of envisage for people?
I hope it brings people clarity,
Mm-hmm.
help them, reorganize their thoughts and ideas. So clarity on what's next, and the ability to hear their own inner voice that's always there in our heart guiding us, that gets often shut down, or we often doubt it. And I hope the book helps them strengthen their connection with that inner voice.
Yep.
And then ultimately, from clarity to listening in, building the courage to go out in the world and do the thing or speak a truth, no matter what it is, but helping women get, closer to their own authentic voice.
And so, you've spoken about it already, this common thread within your work of, supporting that inner journey. So why do you think we become so disconnected from that inner voice or inner wisdom?
Well, I think society has been, pretty good at disconnecting us from ourselves. And if we look, for example, women's magazine and it was that body image, or we need to look a certain way. And I don't know, maybe celebrity, influencer, giving us an image of this is what success means. So I think we were fed those stereotypes or ideal, and kind of brainwashed into thinking this is what success looks like. This is what a good life should look like. This is what I should be doing, based on that societal pressure. And thankfully, I think with the arrival of yoga and meditation, in the 70s, and then that really encouraged people to question themselves and their own life and their own purpose. And out of all the travels I've done and spending time with different cultures and different people, it stood out to me that we all have the goal of happiness. We all want to be happy. We all want to be there with our children and protect the children and make a good life. And that's a common thread. And so I think more and more, the trend has reversed, and people are getting more and more empowered to connect with themselves, to use different modalities to do so. And there's probably less pressure now to look a certain way. I think we've been a lot more encouraged to go on that internal quest and follow that path.
So I saw that you talk about the sacred unfolding of life. So what does that actually mean, and what does that look like in everyday life?
The sacred unfolding of life, to me, it feels like when I'm in nature or when I write, and this connection, this natural pouring coming over me. It's a similar thing when I tend to my garden, when I walk in the forest. There's like a connection with the divine, or there's a connection with God, or with something greater than me, that feels very supportive, that feels very peaceful, often a reflection that I'm on the right path or doing the right thing at that point in time. And there's also that trust of it's going to unfold the way it's meant to be. And I've been reflecting lately also on, the balance between letting that sacredness unfold by itself and the power of our own choices, making the choice to making the choice to be happy, making the choice to change that habit, making the choice to try the new hobby or something that's calling us, but that we've been afraid or holding back to try. And it's that delicate balance between the trusting, so a daily connection with something greater, whether it's through prayer, writing, spending time in nature, moving my body in whatever way it wants to move, but allowing that connection with God or the divine. And then taking it a step further into this reality of sort of, working towards it and making it happen.
Prioritizing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Acting upon, the insights of those urges or impulses that feel aligned, that, oh,
Yeah.
yes, that's, the next step.
And that's quite often how like the creative call comes as well, right? It's this kind of little whisper, and it's about trusting that and following it, even if it seems like it's sort of the last thing you should be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as you were talking there, I was thinking it's also about like honoring the season, right? Because so talk a bit about, how you see that kind of interplay with nature's seasons, and that inner journey. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm very sensitive to the actual, cyclical, the seasons. And we actually moved to far north Queensland for a while, and for a couple of years, and I hated it because it was sunny every day. And I just find that it was so boring. And it felt like I didn't have the right, to be depressed or to feel down one day. because of the tropical climate and the sun all the time.
Mm.
Whereas living in Melbourne and moving back here, there is that natural shift through the season. So we're just entering autumn here, and you can feel the change in the air, the colder mornings and warmer afternoons. The colors of the leaves of the trees have started to change. And then I know it's going to be winter and there's going to be this call to really retreat in the house, make it really cozy, wear wool and have those hot drinks and ponder even more, write even more. And then, it'll be spring and you do have fostered that energy that's going to come out and bloom, and you're going to take actions on the things that kind of were brewing during winter. And then that summer was, beautiful weather and spending a lot of time outdoors and socializing, exploring new places, all of that. And that feels like such a natural way for me to live and to go through, well, those physical changes, the mental changes, but also those creative cycles as well. So I do love seeing nature changes like that, because what happens in nature is also a reflection of what's happening internally.
Yeah, so beautiful. And so how do you think this kind of work then around, the inner journey? How do you think that can also support our creative practice and our creative journey?
I think, first of all, it's very much about, making time to pause and to be with ourselves and to explore whatever creative area it might be, whether it's, making things or painting or writing, working wood or any creative outlet. We really need to give ourselves that time to pause, to listen in and to question what wants to come through me today, what wants to be birthed. Not even, what do I have to say? What should I be making? Because that's killing the process, but just opening that question, what wants to come through me? What needs to be said? What needs to be birthed?
Mm.
And it might be, and I think once again, it's that balance of the internal exploration, allowing space and time for it to morph into something more concrete or real. And also that balance of also exploring the world, right? Like exploring what's outside. And I know for me, particularly, it's spending time in nature. But it might be, going to an exhibition or having a conversation with a stranger, and it's going to open the door onto another thought or idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's that balance of, outward and inward, but very much prioritizing, space and time to connect with our own creative juices.
Yeah. So for all the women who are curious about deepening their relationship with their, inner truth, what powerful message or question would you like to leave them with today?
I would invite them. There's so many ways that you can go within and explore, get to know yourself better. So it's about trying also different methods or different ways that work best. I would like to tell them that it doesn't need to be another thing or practice that we add to our list of things to do, but it's something that can be very easily incorporated in your daily routine. And so you might be driving, and at every red light, you're going to take 3 deep breaths, maybe even one hand on your heart, and just tune in. Maybe, you've had a long day, and when we talk about walking nature, it doesn't have to be a long hike. It can be 5 minutes around the block, 10 minutes up and down the street, just moving and having that time. I think I would encourage them to think about the fact that we have one chance out of 400 billion, I think it is, to be born. And, each one of us matter, and each one of us has something brilliant to offer our families, our communities. And so I would say, honor that inner nudge honor that inner voice, because it's always there. It's always guiding us. So listening closely and honor, follow her guidance.
Beautiful. So how can people get to know you better, Nadege, and get a real feel for the work that you're doing?
So if you go onto my website, nadegelaure.com, there is a free journaling guide called Echoes of the Soul. So that would be very good prompts to start that inner journey and to dive into mindfulness, your dreams, tapping into what's happening in your body, into your heart. The next step would be a 5-day called the Soul Shift Journey. And you receive in your inbox short but powerful practices for 5 days, aiming to help you pause and tap into that clarity and intuition. So there's a meditation, there's journaling prompts, a sit spot practice in nature. There's a soul map and a yin yoga practice. So that would be the next step. And then we can have a look at one-on-one mentoring or conversation to really help those women who are at a crossroads or in transition, but they don't really know where to go next. And so that conversation helps detangle the thoughts and help them go further inwards and really listen to their own heart and honoring that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today, Nadege. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Hey, Sam here. Thanks for listening to the end. If you love this episode, I would love to hear from you. Please send me a message on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Sam Horton Studio. For more episodes like this, please subscribe to my podcast, Soul-Led Creative Women, on your favourite platform. You'll find all the links at samhorton.co/podcast. The themes and tools explored in this episode feature in my new online program, Empowered Creative Soul. To find out more and join the waitlist for VIP perks when doors open, please visit samhorton.co. The direct link is in the show notes. Take care.